Today, it's Edwin's Monday evening property rant. Hello again, it's Martin North from Digital Finance Analytics. Welcome to this post, covering finance and property news with a distinctively Australian flavour. And of course, it's a Monday evening rant with Edwin, who's with me. Hi, Edwin.
G'day, Martin. Signs of the times, mate. Signs of the times.
Absolutely. I love your newfangled communication device just behind you there. This is the latest iteration of the internet, is it?
Look, it's just one of the back to the future sort of things, you know. It's I found it in the shed. I have to clean this bloody shed still. Found it in the shed, and I figured, I'll turn it on. It's a direct line to Xi Jinping.
Absolutely. Well, I was going to say you can.
Daniel Andrews, sorry, Daniel Andrews.
Yeah, you can make a call back to your earlier self and tell you, go left rather than right at the lights or whatever it was.
Yes, one of those things that we could talk online about all the decisions that we would have made, could have, should have, would have, if we'd known what we know now.
Yeah, no regrets, mate. No regrets. That's the only thing. Look forward rather than back, I always say. My late wife, Jill, was always for saying, if only I'd done X or Y. And I kept saying, it's useless energy, right? You can't change the past. The only thing that you can change is the future based on the present.
Well, that's right. And that's the thing, that we get so caught up in our ruts and do the same thing over and over again, like the government. And they're throwing all these stimulus at the property industry just to do what exactly? To really only to line their pockets, but the rest of the public think it's and the first-time buyers, the poor bastards, think that they're doing it to help them. But it's the same.
Politics is pure politics. It's not going to have any positive impact on property prices. In fact, I firmly believe that they will just simply lift prices in the area where that change is coming through. And, it's not actually helping. I remind you of the Productivity Commission report that came out last year that said all of these incentive programs, the only thing they do is lift prices even higher than previously. It doesn't help with housing affordability. It doesn't help with the structural reforms that are required. But the politicians, of course, because the politicians are only interested in politics, not actually making true reforms, just keep playing the old political game.
Yeah, and like we said, I think 99% of them own investment property, so we won't go there today. But look, Dusty tells me there's even bigger politics at play at the moment. There's
Davos, or is it Davos? You see, I always get Davos and Davros muddled up, but I think that's deliberate, right? Because Davos is this massive thing where the World Economic Forum plots with all of these rich, exclusive people about the future. And Davros, of course, was the guy who led the Daleks, right, in Doctor Who. I think there's a lot of commonality between the two.
That's right. But look, Dusty tells me it's all about future lockdowns and keeping the Sydney listings down. I mean, I look at the numbers and I sort of tend to think that Dusty's right, or is she just pulling my leg, mate?
I'm simply going to say exterminate.
Well, they got to do something to keep their listening numbers down. They are coming up a little bit, but not as much as one would expect. And we're going to talk about that obviously later on in the podcast. But look, one of the other things that also noticing the signs of the times are my prediction number 13 is coming to pass with the car sales. But it's going to be interesting how many of the 20 predictions that we put out are going to come to pass. But so far, I think 5 or 6 of them are pretty much on track.
So, what was your prediction about the car? It's a bit of a big text. Something about the.
With regards to the cars, there was going to be a potentially anywhere between a 30 to 50% drop in the second-hand car used market.
Yep.
And I think Tarek also is noting in his used car index an uptick in listings off season, considering it's really off market and off season. But they're still going up. So look, I'm holding firm to that. So there's going to be some cheap cars in time to come. I feel, but particularly towards like to the latter part of the year. And trading sense, she put out that she has a friend in a Porsche dealership, runs a Porsche dealership in Sydney, and the sales of secondhand used cars in that particular dealership is just dropped off the cliff, and potentially the word in the industry, is that with more inventory, obviously supply and demand, it's going to get pretty interesting moving forward. But again, it's signs of the times, Martin, because as you and I have shared, there are many things that people will do in order to protect their principal places of residence.
Sell toys, number one.
Yeah, that's right. Number one, sell the toys. Whatever toys they may have. For the extracurricular activity that they may have on the weekends. Jet skis, boats, bikes, trail bikes, whatever they do. That's the first thing that generally goes. And now this is general overview. It's not a hard and fast rule. It's a general overview, as you can appreciate. And then the second one on the list, as far as I'm concerned, is the extra cars at home.
Yep.
Because once you've got equity in the property, what do they do? Little Johnny wants a cart because they can't catch a bus to school. Mary wants a cart because she can't catch public transport to the university or wherever Mary goes. And the missus has to have a four-wheel drive in order to drop off the other two kids at creche and kindergarten. And of course, hubby needs to have that sports car for the weekends because driving the Merc during the week, and having to drive the Merc on the weekends is not good enough. He has to have the sports car. So then, obviously, the extra cars at home and businesses with extra leases, again, extra cars and leases that are very, very costly. They get rid of those. Then you've got your holiday homes. This is my overall general pecking order. Then you've got your holiday homes that go. Then obviously your investment properties, and this is all to protect your principal place of residence. And I'd say in between holiday homes and around there comes private schooling. That's when those hard decisions come about. Yep. And that's all in order to protect the principal place of residence. So the hard times bring about this, and in between, somewhere in there, is that other extra curricular activity. The love passions on the side. So well.
plus a little bit of an extra gig or a side hustle or whatever, right? Anything to try and bring a few extra dollars. But interestingly, in the local area here, the thing that I've noticed is the number of caravans that are parked around the place with for sale signs on the outside of them. They weren't there 6 months ago.
Well, I'd be going out there and snapping them up, Martin, because you got Lismore. People have been living in the cars for the last 3 or 4 months since those floods, and over in Forbes. My colleagues and people in the industry out there tell me that you've got caravan cities because some incredible number in one of the townships just outside of Forbes, 20 minutes out from Forbes, out of 300 homes, only one home, get this, out of 300 homes in this suburb a bit further out from Forbes in this township, only one home was insured for flood.
Wow. Yeah, well, it's because in flood, a lot of the insurance was so high, the premiums were so high, a lot of people couldn't get insurance or didn't want to get insurance. So that's a scary thing. Interestingly, the banks are also using this as another excuse to close branches. So some of the flooded branches, rather than reopening them, they're just closing them.
Well, look, outside of the banks, Martin, you've got other ancillary services, as well. You've also got other shops and businesses. They've got to be thinking: do we open up again? Do we go again? Do we put our faith in this manipulated global and local events that are happening? I mean, that's just a theory. That's just a theory.
Well, but linking that with, I'm I think we might be able to read something into the latest stamp coming out of China relating to the year of the rabbit. Right, this might be telling us something.
Well, look, this is the thing. We spoke about the lunar, the lunar year, the lunar calendar year that's coming up for the Asian community, and obviously this is so that get a little bit deeper in, and this is basically the chatter that's also happening in mainland China and predominantly. A little bit locally, but mainly mainland China, because of all the stuff that they're going through that we've been speaking about with their economy, and the lockdowns, the opening up, the virus going feral and so forth, and all the issues. So they've really opened this whole thing up. That ominous looking stamp, the official stamp for the calendar lunar year, and it's rather interesting. So it's actually I found out a bit more, and it's actually the year of the black rabbit. Although we're not having a representation of a black rabbit on the stamp, but the actual colours, the blue and the white, colours that have been used by this traditional artist, are actually the colours used in funerals. And this event, this is a 60-year event where the year of the rabbit happens. It's really, really ominous, right? So you've got the two colours, the white background, blue rabbit. It's really representative of death and funerals. You got the red eyes, which symbol of craziness, not getting any sleep, people just being on edge. Then you've got they're talking about the bloodstained mouth. Again, no peace, really evil scenario. So this is the chatter that's happening, and it's going to basically influence the productivity, influence business, influence what they do in China. We're talking about a very a community, a culture that puts a lot of faith and a lot of trust in all these symbols and symbolic things. I guess they're different to, you could say, to a lot of the Christian, the Western world as well, and their religions, right? So then you've got the bloodstained mouth, again, no peace, evil. Then you've got the two interesting objects that the rabbit is holding. I'm going to pronounce it right. The Pangguanbi, the Judgment's pen. The Judgment's pen on the left hand side, so on the right hand, and then you've got the Zheng Zibu, which is the book of the births and death. So with clawed feet, it's just evil. So I would say basically, how is this going to affect? How is all this that's being represented in this stamp? What the local traditional artists are portraying, what they're saying, and they're going to have a bit of backlash now after putting this, is really, it's going to be a bad year. Their belief is going to be a bad year. So they're moving forward in this new year of the rabbit with that in mind. So you can only imagine, because obviously I'm trying to interpret this, what they're saying as to how it's going to affect our industries here, how it's going to affect us in general, our property industry. You can whistle Dixie if you believe that there's going to be plane loads, truckloads, boatloads of tourists and people that are going to be overstaying their visas, because it's just, people are just going to buckle down, are just going to basically lock their doors, shut their windows, lock their doors, bolt themselves down in the house, and hope and pray that 2023 for them, for their calendar year, moves on ahead real quick, because it's and therefore, how does that translate to us? Less productivity means less goods coming over, particularly for the building industry. More pressure on our construction industry. More pressure on, particularly in the bigger projects, the bigger buildings. So where builders and developers are relying on materials-based materials, finished goods coming over from various provinces of China. So we're at the moment, the cost to build the unit, the overall general cost in a block of in a high-rise development for one of those units, it actually costs, when you incorporate, the digging of the basement, the common areas, everything else. So it's around about, I'm being told, it's around about $520,000 per lot, whereas pre-pandemic, pre-2020, it was reaching 360,000, and now we're at above 500. That's a huge cost. So that's how I translate what I'm seeing there, what they're talking about, as to how it's going to affect us, Martin.
Now, very interesting. And two observations. I've spoken to a few more builders this week, and to a man, because they were all male, they all said they've got more half-finished projects than they've ever had in their life because they can't get labour and or materials to finish projects.
Yeah, and then you find that they'll be taken to the tribunal. They'll be,
Yes.
they'll be in NCAT. They'll be, and there'll be all sorts of issues. And this is what we're getting from NCAT, what we're getting from our contacts in there, and the issues there, and people just don't understand. Obviously, a lot of people walked into it. Builders walked in, and this is where tradies, in a way, are moving away from your bigger builders as well, and they're starting to do pretty much jobs on their own because they're not getting paid.
Yep.
They're really not getting paid, so it's hard. So the pressure really is on. So is it one would say, is it a real representation? This traditional artist that's painted this ominous rabbit. Is it a conspiracy? Is it a prediction? Is it reality? Is it going to come to pass? Are we just wishing that, is it one of those self-fulfilling prophecies, you would say, or, is it really going to happen? But I don't think, but you and I have been saying that things have to break before they can get better. And I believe that a lot of stuff hasn't been broken yet. Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of people arguing that things aren't going to break. So one of the interesting arguments I see a lot is all of those property construction cost increases we've been talking about means that the price of a new build is considerably higher than where it was. And so their argument is that means that property prices won't go down because the cost of new building is going up. All I would say to that is, yes, but just remember that the ratio of new building to existing stock is, quite small relative to the large amount of stock that's out there. And secondly, the cost might be going up, but what that is doing is squeezing builders' profit, because a lot of builders are making no profit at all on work they've committed to contract to deliver. And so that's where a lot of the squeeze is. So I'm not convinced the argument is intact to say that property prices are going to be protected because the cost of the new building is going up.
Well, not if you're only looking at one point. You got to look at this holistically, of course, on the other side of that argument, or in addition to that argument, is the push for more immigration, and is the push for a bigger Australia, and people are saying that that we just don't have enough population, and that's the other thing. I tell you, one of the things that I'm 150% convinced is happening, has been happening, is happening, will continue to happen in a bigger scale, is, as you pointed out, Martin, that the profit margin isn't there. If anything, a lot of these builders, and correct me if I'm wrong, but some of the builders that you've been speaking to, I can guarantee you that the majority of them would be saying that they've actually gone backwards on more than 50% of the unfinished projects.
Yep.
In terms of, so it's going to be an out-of-pocket exercise to finish the project. But they have to do that in order to keep the licenses, in order not to face fair trading, in order not to be sued, in order not to be taken to the cleaners. Basically, it's a cost of that business at the moment. But I tell you what sort of putting all that together, what I see, what we have been seeing, what I am seeing, and what we'll continue to see, and more magnified, is cheaper, shittier materials and a lot more builders cutting corners.
Oh yeah, I'm seeing it left, right and centre. And in fact, one of the builders that I spoke with admitted that they'd actually scaled back on the quality of the construction that they were using. So they were using smaller wood, less wood. And I said, well, how does that fit with the building regs? And he said, well, nobody's checking. So
that's right. And this is where a little people get caught out.
Yep.
I mean, on a new project, we send our inspectors, if we're assisting one of our clients, with a new build. We've got agreements with building inspectors, pest and building inspectors. They will conduct no less than 5 inspections in progress, and that is one of the things that we encourage our clients to do when we help them, assist them to buy a house and then package. We make sure that the lawyers put that in the contract.
Yep.
Before it's signed, that our clients are able to get an independent inspector to inspect the project, because that will push hell and high water. That will push they'll do whatever it takes not to get those clauses in there, because they think, we've got our own inspectors, this and that. Sure. So that's what needs to be done, and more so moving forward.
Absolutely. Well, you certainly can't rely on what people say. You need to validate it. As we've said before, do your due diligence, whether you're looking to buy new or existing construction or an existing property. So now, just before we go on, it's worth highlighting there's another issue. The traders are being sucked over to the west now because of all of the stuff going on over there, right?
Yeah, well, this is the local chatter, the local the snakeheads and the bosses here in Sydney from our WeChat chatterers. They're not happy at all. They've been spitting chips all weekend because a lot of the teams that they've been managing, a lot of the crews that they've been managing and that form part of the WeChat groups are basically being headhunted and taken to WA and in Queensland. And look, as we spoke before in the podcast, I mean, what do you do when you're getting paid when you're getting paid $600 a day cash in hand? You're getting offers of $600 a day cash in hand in WA, or $450 for a tradie that's got 3 years experience, $450 or $500 here. What do you do, Martin?
Yeah, it's pretty obvious, isn't it? You go where the money is. Follow the money.
And that's what they do. Yeah. But the other interesting thing that's happening here is locally is, and this has been really magnified over the weekend, is a lot of people from other trades or other industries, such as for some reason there was a lot of people that were involved in butcher side of things, in the what would you call it, in abattoirs and that. They're selling the tools. They're selling the tools because they're not getting paid enough working in that industry. Yep. And they're selling the tools and specialist tools that they use the butchers use and they use in the abattoirs and that. And they're going, and this is what's really concerning a lot of the owners of obviously different businesses. And let's want to clarify the thing is that there are a lot of Chinese people, or second generation, first or second generation, the third generation Chinese communities that own a lot of businesses still that provide other services to our local communities. So we're and they've got to follow the money, and yep. Why wouldn't you?
Yeah, indeed. Well, certainly interesting times. Another interesting time, although this might be a nothing burger, of course, relates to the pets charter and renting. Well, yeah, if you believe it.
Yeah, look, I think it's going to be a nothing burger. I've been waiting for a little bit more information, and obviously I follow Tendencies Union on the Tendencies Union on Twitter, and they got very close ties with the Labor government. So therefore I thought the article that they put out would have a little bit more substance, but it's nothing different to what you and I spoke about. Again, I feel it's really much a nothing burger when you read the article in its totality, and one of the things there that even one of the a tenant from Victoria points out in that article, and that if anything, it's made things worse, because once you disclose on your application that you've got a pet, that's it. You get thrown at the bottom of the pole, Martin. And this is what basically is going to happen here in New South Wales. I haven't heard any good news either from Queensland or from Victoria or any other state, for that matter. And this just proves our point that just based on the surface of what they were talking about, this 21 day tenure to wait for an application on a reason for the landlords to give a reason and this and that. It's just all BS, because properties are taking a lot less to get to people are been vetting tenants a lot quicker, and tenancies taking a lot quicker. What needs to really happen is there needs to be reform and change from within the industry, and the industry bodies. The industry bodies need to bring about that change. But when you've got the industry bodies going against any worthwhile change in the regulations anyway, I mean, what do you expect? So I actually sent out a few. I've got a few more, but I put 3 up there. I did a little bit of a poll to all the contacts, and the contacts that I chose that we talked to in the industry. These are people, Martin, that have two of them have been in the industry close to 30 years as property managers, and the last one, she's been in the industry for as a property manager, active property manager, for close on to 40 years and managing a massive rent roll. So the responses to the question that I asked, Martin, are really, I feel, is a real representation of what the industry thinks about any potential changes or any changes, and what the article put out by the Tendencies Union is a reflection of that anyway. They don't give a shit. The industry really doesn't care. Well,
I think the comment on the last one's really interesting. We just do the same as we are doing now. We'll pick the application that we want. So,
yeah, that's right. So that's going to that's going to continue like that until they fix the rental crisis, which is that's and but you look at what the Liberal Party brought in in relation to the rent bidding, right? To try and help with the crisis, or trying to assist with the crisis that's happening at the moment. Again, it's a nothing burger. So there really needs to be a greater push, as I've said over and over again, and I've been saying this for decades. It has to happen within the industry, with industry bodies, as opposed to the proposals they're a good idea, and it all works well on paper. It all looks great on paper, but in practice it doesn't, unless you've got a cultural work ethic, an internal change of attitudes and work ethics. You're not going to get. They will always find ways. They will always find loopholes, like they continue to do with underquoting and the like. I mean, they do also. There's just so many loopholes in the regulation and in the act, to navigate through. And at the end of the day, you can always say, like they do in Victoria, the vendor made me do it. In this case, you can say, the landlord made me do it. There has to be more pressure, but that can only happen if fair trading is properly funded, and we separate the people that would be investigating, would be looking into the real estate industry. We separate those departments again, from the merger that happened over a decade ago, and then we got nothing. We really don't have the boots on the ground to really control and to bring about real change, Martin. And unfortunately, the particularly the Real Estate Institute of New South Wales, isn't much of a help, because they won't stand for any real change. They just stand for their members, which are really the business owners that they give two rats anyway.
Well, that's really the point, isn't it? The industry representatives are actually looking after the interests of the industry members, not consumers, not businesses. And then the government entities who are meant to be policing it, controlling it, are completely without teeth. So therefore, no change. And that's what we've seen for the last few years. And there's nothing here in my mind that changes that one iota. It's still precisely the same. The industry will determine what is done in the best interests of the agents, never mind the consumers. And the government doesn't really care about whether the people are complying or not. That's my takeout.
Yeah, no, exactly. And then you've got, we're going to have more and more stories in relation to the actual accommodation themselves, let alone pet-friendly accommodation. Yeah, we're talking about. I've been posting some stuff of some stories that have been coming in, that people have been sharing with us and asking us questions in relation to rentals. I mean, the latest one that I posted up on Twitter, on my Twitter handle there, was which I didn't share with you tonight, but just talking about it now, is about this young lass, sent an inquiry, sent a question into Dusty and said, I'm just sort of paraphrasing now. It said my auntie has a property that she lives in with 3 granny flats. All 3 tenants in the 3 different granny flats have vacated, and they owe her rent. She's got no recourse. She's been getting the money cash on hand. And I'm sort of thinking, shit, I mean, how many rules have been broken already?
Yeah.
Right. So I figured that it's a home with a genuine flat. The second granny flat is more than likely the garage. The second granny flat is more than likely the garage that was converted into a makeshift granny flat. And the third granny flat was probably one of those caravans that have been for sale down the road from your place that they bought a couple of months ago and put it in the backyard, and they call it 3 granny flats. Well, what I'm getting at, Martin, is things are going to help, and the governments are just playing politics. And are just trying to pamper and just trying to buy votes without doing something really substantive to bring change. But even if they started to do something substantive and put something concrete that you and I would see as concrete and as solid, right? Yeah, change isn't going to happen for another 3 to 5 years, right? And whilst they just play these silly games.
Yep.
One of the immediate things could be that we need really to address those vacant properties that are out there.
Yes.
Sitting vacant, have been sitting vacant for years, and some of them probably been sitting vacant for over a decade.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it is very interesting. And of course, 3 to 5 years is beyond this political cycle, and that's the problem, right? So the politicians veer towards stuff that fits in with their cycle of elections and everything else. But these strategic reforms that we're talking about, which are so critical, just get swept away again, and nothing ever happens. And so we end up with a worsening and continued worsening story around property, whether you're buying or whether you're renting. And the politicians don't care. They only care about getting re-elected. That's all they care about.
They care about the what sort of now they're caring more about their looks. How much weight they've lost. Who's how the missuses look. No, not as much, but how their partners look. It's more about how they're dressing. Have you noticed that?
The image. They've all got image consultants these days, haven't they?
Yeah, image consult. Yeah, and I'm sure those image consultants have probably been, and they look so shabby. I mean, I don't know about you, Martin, but these representatives start to look more and more shabby.
Yep.
Maybe
it's shabby chic. Maybe that's the new look.
Well, it is. I mean, next thing you know, we'll probably get them in t-shirts out there as well. And G shorts, thongs and that. Look, I'd probably vote for the politician that turns out with King G shorts, thongs and a blue singlet.
Oh, the mind boggles. Well, we better go on to our next section. So this is an article which is quite interesting, right? And essentially it's around big Australia again.
Well, that's it. Look, Martin, I've been talking about what are the levers. So we've got this. We're not going to build anything. We're going to pretend we're going to help the rental. We're going to help and try to fix this rental crisis, but we're not really going to build anything substantive and anything of value. We're just going to pretend. We're going to promise 1 million homes, and we're going to promise all sorts of things. But really, they're really going to be shoe boxes in the middle of nowhere where there's no infrastructure, all this sort of shit, right? Because obviously, it's all about. Again, this is my conspiracy. It's all about keeping the numbers down, keeping the house prices values up. Because if they really wanted to do something, right, that would really be pressuring, the state governments would really be pressuring the local LGAs to pull the finger out, and build something and allow small to medium development in a lot of the LGAs that could do with that and get rid of these old shitty fibro asbestos-filled homes that are sitting on anywhere from upwards of 700 square meters to quarter-acre blocks, right? But but that's not enough, right? Now they're starting to give us information, pass on information that our population is simply not big enough, and we need to double the population, Martin. So create more demand, less supply. What is that? What happens then? Right? Interest rates could go to 10%. Nothing's going to. It's
well. Then, the whole concept of bringing more people in and sort of pumping the market, which of course is precisely what the developers all want. They're all saying, well, we've got we want to create more demand, so bring more people in. We'll build more rabbit hutches for them. No infrastructure, no quality building, just throw them up cheap and sell them quick. That's great for the construction industry, but it is not great for the community. It is not great for those people from a lifestyle perspective when they come to live in them. And of course, it doesn't solve the fundamental issues we've discussed earlier. It's purely commercial driven. It's purely being driven by developers and by businesses who say, we need more, because of course they want to grow the pie. And I would remind everybody that the right way to measure the effectiveness of the economy is actually on a GDP per capita basis, not just gross GDP. And on a per capita basis, we're going backwards. So this is not helping in terms of actually creating a more effective economy. All it is doing is swelling the numbers and just creating more congestion and more difficulty. But, this big Australia thing has taken off. It's got a life of its own. Labor Party is supporting it. Big business is supporting it. Construction industry is supporting it. The states are supporting it. Everybody is, because they've all got vested interests, but it doesn't make it right.
No, it doesn't make it right, and he's just gonna. But we know what the reasons are why they're doing it, and it's the unfortunate thing is, as we say, Martin, this has to break before it can really be fixed.
Yep.
Because the way people are living and where they're living and how they're living is absolutely mind-boggling, and it's sad. And it's not only tenancy. We're going to see more in homeowners, particularly when the costs to get things repaired are just beyond their reach, because they're just barely making the repayments if they've got a mortgage, or even if they don't have a mortgage but they're retired, they're on a pension. There are pensioners that I know that are limiting their the food that they buy just to maintain their properties. So you could be asset rich, you could be, but you can't eat the brick and mortar, can you?
No, it's not very tasty. I've tried that. Doesn't work very well. Not even with cheese. And the point is this: in my surveys, one of the fastest growing segments from a stress perspective are those who are actually, later moving into retirement. Quite often, those who thought they'd set themselves up with not just the state pension but their own private means, and were expecting that they would have more than enough to be able to cover the sort of the day-to-day running costs and still have a bit left over to play and all those things, right? That's all gone. And interestingly, there was a survey that came out in the US, but I think it's quite relevant here, that showed that since Biden came in, so a couple of years ago, about 10% of incomes in the US have been gobbled up by just inflation. So in other words, the amount of money that people thought they had versus what they've actually got available now is 10% lower. And I think that's pretty similar to what we're seeing in some of those groups here as well. So whilst we keep talking about those who've got buffers and everybody's happy and they've got big incomes, there's a lot of people who are not, and a lot of people are making those tough decisions already. And as you say, do you eat or do you actually repair the property? Well, to an extent, you can put off repairing the property for a bit, but of course, the longer you leave it, the more significant the repairs become and the more difficult they are to fix. So it is actually, it's a real trap, right? Because actually you have to go on maintaining properties. They don't actually look after themselves. They do need to have things fixed, whether it's painting or plumbing or whatever it is. It's a continuing drain.
Look, it is, and then you've got in strata, it's even worse. And then you've also got health issues. I mean, we could just go on and on and on. And
absolutely. It's a big deal.
This is the whole thing that they're not really wanting to address.
Yep.
And it's in the too hard basket. Or is it really in the too hard basket? Or is it really?
It's I don't want to think about it basket, and there aren't that many votes in it. There are more votes elsewhere, so I don't care too much basket.
Exactly.
And talking about baskets, this is another one. So the old banker mum and dad is still there, although interestingly in my surveys, what I'm seeing is that people are actually now less able to convince mum and dad to lend. Why? Because their own equity is disappearing, right? So suddenly they're finding that they don't have the same access to the equity that the banker mum and dad had earlier on. So I'm beginning to see in my surveys a bit of a change in trajectory, although, of course, the mainstream media is 6 to 12 months behind what's really going on again.
Yeah, and the other thing there, Martin, is you probably if you ask the question on your surveys, with these people that are sitting on these homes and the equity, the potential mum and dad banks, and the hesitancy because that whilst your standalone home or whilst your normal properties are maybe going down in value, there's a section of the industry that hasn't gone down in value. If anything, it's gone up in value, and that's retirement homes.
Yeah, that's true. That's true too. Although interestingly, a lot of people, of course, banker mum and dad people have a property, but they also have shares as well and savings. And of course, the value of shares have dropped significantly compared with last year. It's up a little bit now, but it's still way down. And many people actually had taken money out of term deposits because the rates were so low and put them into shares and other things like cryptos, whatever, right? I mean, all of those other asset classes have all gone the wrong way as well. So suddenly, the parents are looking at their own finances and sort of running the ruler over what they've got now. And then thinking about what's it going to be in 5 years' time, and thinking, actually, maybe we need to keep that equity, maybe we need to keep those savings rather than give it down to the kids. Yeah,
and when you've got 2 or 3 that are pulling at it, well, everyone wants a piece. But like I said, the retirement side of things is getting more expensive, because the retirement homes or villages or when you're stepping down, those values aren't going down; they're going up.
Absolutely.
So that buying power is eroding, like you said, from the equity in the home side of things, as well as what they can buy on the other side, and how far. So they have to go further out than they would want to go as well.
And I'll tell you something else that's interesting. Quite a few people in my surveys who are going through that downsizing, they're quite interested now in carving out the $300,000 or whatever it is that you can put back into superannuation from a downsize. That's a program that's actually getting quite a lot of traction, because what they're trying to do is they're trying to buttress their savings for later. So rather than actually giving it to the kids, maybe they should downsize and put it back in their own superannuation. So I think we could see some interesting change in the dynamics in the next little while. Let's go on and talk about numbers briefly, Edwin, because the numbers, well, they're still a bit sort of ho-hum, aren't they?
Yeah, look, they're going up. They're coming up. We're seeing a rise in about, I would say, we're going to start averaging about anywhere between 400 and 500. New home listings, property listings a week. But look, in terms of it's still early days. We've still got Australia Day coming up. We've still got the school holidays are still on, and the activity really doesn't happen. And I guess even the auction numbers, we're not going to really see. The beginning of the litmus test is really going to happen on the 28th. Although auction numbers have also come up from your 10 the previous week to 59 this week. It's still very, very low. But look, with house numbers and auction, my predictions are for the year that the house listing numbers are going to remain somewhat subdued for a little bit, because of so much happening, so much uncertainty around the industry. Things that you and I have talked about as well. So I'm still predicting the auction, sale by auction is going to be down by about anywhere between 20 and 30% this year. So that would indicate a lower confidence level in sales. Sales volumes are going to be low, which is going to affect the real estate industry itself. But obviously, this is more poignant to the Sydney market. Melbourne seems to be a market on its own, and it seems to the listings seem to be cranking up a lot faster than they did last year. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens this year if they're going to be cranking up as fast as they were last year. And as I said, potentially Melbourne could hit the 30,000 property listings on market in the domain portal, because of whatever things are happening there in those markets, in the individual markets. Whether it's why they're there, I couldn't really tell, because we don't focus on in Melbourne. But yeah, look, the things are going to start we're going to have a better idea February, but these figures nevertheless start to sort of slowly paint a picture. And obviously, with what I've also shared with you for tonight was for what some of the agents say. Look, there's snapshots of what the industry is saying, what the conversations that I have and the team has with the agents that we associate, talk to regularly, and also because we're chasing properties for clients. They themselves, there's no confidence in listing numbers themselves.
Yep.
So it's more pressure overall on everybody. 2023 is going to be a very, very interesting year. So I think it's going to be a wait and see, as to whether or not people are going to be basically, as we say, dropping like flies and putting the properties up. The other side of that, as we've spoken about before, is where do they go if they want to maintain the family in the area? What options do they have if there's rental stresses? Yeah,
well, rental is a real issue. Just in terms of Brisbane, the numbers there, 4723 on the 9th, and then if you get a sense of that, there's really not a lot of movement. Although interestingly, again in Brisbane, what you're seeing, Edwin. But I'm hearing a lot of price reductions. And in fact, I did an anti-spook video specifically on the Gold Coast the other day. And there the price falls are quite significant now and quite widespread. Domain's got a new app where they show on a map where the drops are, and there's quite a few there where there's drops of 10% or more. So it's quite interesting just watching some of that.
Yeah, look, today I did an interesting search with some of the people that I haven't spoken, some of the agents that I haven't spoken to for a while. I mean, down in Thermia and Picton and those areas down there, they've had huge price reductions as well. Not as many listings. This is the other phenomenon, Martin. It's really a wacky world because it's not as many listings on market, but yet they've been reducing the prices considerably. One would think, supply, but it's early days.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. And by the way, my I don't know what you think, but my view is dropping it by 50,000 or 75,000. It's so insubstantial, inconsequential in the scheme of things. And actually, I'm not sure that it necessarily brings forward a whole bunch of new purchasers. So there's something which I don't fully understand as to why they think that makes a difference.
Well, look, you see this long, and some of the campaigns that happen around Picton and that from some of the big properties there, where properties have been on the market for over 150 days. Some of them being on the market for over 200 days, and you're seeing price drops from 1.6 to now around the 1.3, so it's really strange. But then some of that's also happening, in terms of percentages. You see the same percentages happening in some of the more affluent parts of the Blacktown LGA. But it does, as you said, there are price points where you don't see a surge in inquiry, you don't see a surge in activity, but unfortunately, the price point where the first-time buyers want to enter into these markets, they're just getting smashed because
Absolutely.
of
the borrowing power, Edwin. It's down now 25% easy from the peak, so people just can't borrow as much, even with all of the stamp duty changes and everything else. So people cannot get what they could get 6 to 9 months ago, and that's the reason why that end of the market we're seeing a huge change. So people, trying to discount to get back down to that level where it's reachable again is what I think's going on. But further up the market, we're also seeing significant fall. So if you look at some of the northern beaches, for example, around Sydney, the price falls there are so significant. They're now looking more like prices of Western Sydney.
But you know what I know a lot of our followers in the northern beaches and that are gonna pounce on me. But what were the northern beaches when we were growing up? The northern beaches were just managed by the water.
Yeah, very good. Now, just quickly on the auctions, because you mentioned them earlier on, but it's worth quickly looking at this. So this is on the 7th of Jan, right? So almost nothing, right? And then on the 14th, we went up a little bit, right? A few more open inspections, but the auction count's pretty low. And then on the 21st, up a bit more. But as you said, it's still early days, isn't it?
The 28th, the numbers for the 28th is really going to be where we're going to see. But not only that, but also not only the numbers for the 28th, but the activity or the sales, I feel are going to start to set the trend moving forward. But I'm convinced that sale by auction, as I said, is going to drop by about 20 to 30% from last year's figures, and people are going to shy away. Because they're not going to be as confident. So the confidence that confidence and zing and enthusiasm and let's go on. It's really, I'm not hearing it. I'm not seeing it. It doesn't feel that way. Even the agents themselves are feeling a little bit awkward about it. So I don't think that there's going to be. It's going to be there because of obviously there are so many unknowns yet to unfold in 2023 with regards to interest rate rises, how quickly, how steeply they're going to rise. what people are going to do. So look, when people are going to try and get in the market, they've got to look at their individual patches or areas that they want to look at and see what's happening. But as I said, as I've been saying for a while now, there's a bandwidth where the first time buyers want to get in. That seems to be very strong, very buoyant, very active. People are just jumping in because of all sorts of these incentives, the fear of missing out. But then again, coupled with that, Martin, is you've got in those brackets, in those price points, where try to rent something in that area, or people are fearful of the fact that if the rental lease reaches its tenure, can they rent it for the same amount of money? Will they be able to re-rent it again? What's the owner going to do? So there's all these uncertainties. So that's putting, I would say, upward pressure on those markets, which is really counterproductive to what the government wants to do. But you and I knew it was going to happen. Then you've got your higher brackets. You've got your higher brackets where again, it comes back to areas as well, specific areas where you've got the demographics where there are families, you've got two generations living under the same roof. You might even have both in-laws from both sides and the kids living in the same household, sharing whatever in order to afford and live there, because of reasons of the community, the language, the schools, and they will merge or combine their incomes in order to buy in, right? So you've got this sort of things that you've got to look at. So it's painting Sydney, painting Melbourne with one brush. That doesn't happen. We can generalize in terms of confidence. A lot of the theatre is going to come off the auction scenarios, I feel. But one of the things that we will see arising in 2023, I've seen it before. It's something that won't change, and it's something that's inherent. That's just in this industry, and that is underquoting is going to be twice as bad as what it was last year.
Yeah, and the fair trade people are still not looking at it seriously. Now, let's just pick up those comments, because you mentioned them earlier on, but it's worth just looking at them again. So this is basically you asking people about what are you seeing, right? Yeah,
that's right. So this is the first one that you shared there. I mean, what's happening? Asking about listing inquiries again, listing inquiries and CMAs, what's happening in your area. And so listings have slowed down. We're at 7 for January. This time last year we were 13. So this is an area where there's a lot of people have got to make those decisions. They're an area of predominantly a demographic of retirees, and again, it's what we were saying. Do they sell or do they hold? Do they hold for another year or 2 years or 3 years? Wait and see if things have changed. If there's going to be upward pressure for whatever reasons, has the equity being eroded that much that they can't buy into a retirement village anymore because the prices there have gone up so much, all these things. So this is going to have an impact in the industry if this trend continues. And I believe in these areas, in some areas of Sydney, this trend will continue for the first and potentially the second quarter, which obviously has a snowball effect on that side, because then you've got agents and agencies not earning incomes because they get paid when they sell the property, not by the market going up or down. They get when transactions happen. So there's going to be a lot of pressure there. So it's it's a bit all over the place. That's that one there. And the other one on your screen there is again from a different area altogether. I was basically trying to gauge in this area, in this area of Sydney, this agent, he looks after, or his agency services 4 suburbs. So it's 4 suburbs, but in this immediate area, there's 10,000 homes right? Again, this is an area where there's going to be a lot of retirees, older homes, big homes that requiring a lot of renovation. And at the moment, there's only 29 properties listed for sale. And he says there's roughly 30 selling agents and 4 officers, apart from independent players that also are active. So I count about 8 different brands in that region, but officers, established officers in the area, there's 40, 30 selling agents, 10,000 homes. And out of the 10,000 homes, there's only 29 homes currently, that this time not apartments or townhouse homes, freestanding homes for sale. So, again, there's a lot of pressure in the industry, but is this enough? Is this enough to maintain the prices? We're talking in an area where the price point is, the average is about 1.7. So, it's not, it's not below $1 million. So this is where an area where those grants or those incentives aren't necessarily supporting or assisting first-time buyers.
No, very interesting, Edwin. And I think it just shows you the dilemma that we're facing at the moment. We're interested to see how it plays out. And I think you're right. We'll know by the middle of February, I think, how this is going to shake, because there's a few things to drop. But before we go, you've got a really, really important take for the day here. And I think in the current environment, this is something which people need to understand. And it's to do with whether you give up your call-on-off rights.
Yeah, that's right. Look, what we saw, and I spoke about it, and I shared about it, and also put a fair bit about it on Twitter with regards to the these pretend auctions that are going to be materialising everywhere. Look, agents, the first and foremost reason why agents take properties to auction is because it's a shorter campaign, and it means that they get the commission in their offers in a lot quicker. That's, I don't care who you are, and I don't care whether you're the CEO, CFO, CME, whatever, a person in any of the industry bodies. That is the first and foremost reason why they push for auctions. Other than every other reason comes secondary to that. So because we may end up with a lot of properties lingering on market because the agents oversold the listing to the vendors, told them they were going to get the 1.5s when the properties was only really worth 1.350, and so forth, just to get the listing. And obviously they're not going to sell it. It goes on to the second one. So as properties linger on market, obviously we're going to see these shenanigans play out where you've got these, they're going to basically collude with the owners, unfortunately, with not all, but most of the owners. They'll collude with them, and they'll start playing silly buggers and say, look, we're going to go out as an auction campaign. Because when you go out as an auction campaign, Martin, you're basically, if you go in and enter the negotiations on the property whilst it's in that campaign, that period under the auction campaign, you've literally waived your cooling off rights, or rights to be able to do any due diligence, or you've got to basically do your due diligence whilst you're negotiating with the property. So there's going to be a lot of these shenanigans being played out around auctions, these pretend auctions that they've got no real reason. They won't take the properties to auction if the sentiment and the emotion is low from the vendors as well as the agents. But that's the primary reason why they do it, is to snag you, because once you put a 10% drop and you don't get the valuation on the other side, well, then you've got a choice. You either stump up the balance of the shortfall in the valuation, or you drop your 5% or your 10%. You basically drop it cold, and you walk away.
Yep.
Most people will beg, borrow, and steal to make up the difference, right? See, so that's when you've waived your cooling off rights, because the banks won't give you a valuation. They'll give you an indicative valuation, but they won't give you a formal valuation until there's an exchange of contracts. right? But when you've got when you're buying a property under outside of an auction campaign, well, and which is predominantly when you're buying a property under a private treaty scenario, you've got your 5 or 7, you can even negotiate a 10-day cooling off period where you can do all your due diligence, and all you will lose should the valuation not come to the party, the value not come to the party with the valuation, is all you will lose is 0.25 or 0.25% of the value of the property that you agreed to pay, which is a vast difference from losing 10%.
Yep. No, it's a very important point. And, I always say to people, make sure you speak to your lawyer, right, around this whole thing. So, because you can easily get caught and get swept up and suddenly find that you as you say, you lose your deposit simply because things move underneath. And it's all because of the way that the agents run the sale. And so it's really important. You need to actually understand what you're playing.
Yeah, and let me say this, Martin, is just because they go out under an auction campaign doesn't mean that you can't that part of your negotiations can't have that, get your lawyer, a conveyancer, to put that as part of the condition of the sale, that is, I will give you the 1.5. If your vendor agrees to accept the 1.5, I'll give, providing I get a 5-day cooling off. Oh, no, but we're under an auction campaign, blah, blah, you have to waive your rights. No, look, that's my condition of the purchase. So you can add all these conditions.
Absolutely.
As long as you agree, that's it. So it's not a hard and fast rule that you have to. It's just when you go to when you're buying at the actual auction, that's you're agreeable to that.
And my thought is, because often you'll ask to get a sight of the contract, because that's part of what you can do. It's worth getting somebody to look at that and make sure that he's actually on the basis that you think it is, because again, it's much, much more difficult to sort of walk away afterwards. So again, it's the same old, isn't it? Do your due diligence on the way in.
Yeah, you do your due diligence. Make sure you make sure you instruct your conveyancer or conveyancing solicitor what it is that you want, what it is that it's being agreed on verbally, and because nothing is signed or until such time that those conditions are changed on the contract. Because once you sign, you're agreeable. You're agreeable to all that. And look, unfortunately, there are lazy conveyancers and there are lazy conveyancing solicitors. Most conveyancers are great, but there are some lazy ones.
Oh, there are a few around. But what I always say to people, I don't know whether I'm right on this, but I tend to say, well, why don't you get your conveyancer to come back to you and say, this is the contract and here are the key points, right? So you almost get a little report on the contract, which then gives you independently a stake in the ground as to what precisely is intended, so that you can't say you didn't know, but it also holds the solicitor or the conveyancer to account as well.
Yeah, of course. And that's part of, look, in all honesty, that's part of their job anyway, Martin. But
I know it's part of their job, but
they don't do it.
That's the point. That's the point. They often don't do it. Yeah.
No, they don't do it because it's just it's almost like they're treating it as a side gig.
Yes.
A bit of extra cash there.
Absolutely.
I've got to spend 3 hours on this bloody contract, and all I'm going to be getting is $300 when a family law matter makes me $450 an hour.
Correct.
Why take the job if you're not going to do it properly in the first place?
Exactly. And so what I always say to people is, if you're going into that sort of situation, you want to check out your conveyancer or solicitor to make sure that they're actually going to give you the time and the service that you need, and not just tick the boxes and assume that everything's fine, and then you discover that, actually, they didn't tell me about this, and then, you never asked. Believe me, this is really, really important, particularly in the current environment.
Yeah, 100%. And if those instructions aren't there, as I said, you have negotiated terms. Keep everything in writing. you pass on those emails, those conversations to your conveyancer, to your solicitor. This is what was agreed on. This is what we're going to do. Don't sign until. Hence the reason why on the other side as well, Martin, is as a great negotiating tool as well, is that once you've done all your due diligence, once you've done all your checks and balances, and you're 150% that you are going to get the funding if you need funding, but if you're buying the cash, a great negotiating tool, a great negotiating power is you say to the agent, listen, I will give you, even if it's a private treaty sale, and say, I will give you a 66W certificate, meaning I'll waive the cooling off, give you the 10%, so you've got a guaranteed sale rather than, take him off. And that is powerful.
Yep.
And you could get a reduction on price because
Absolutely.
There's more power in that.
Yep.
Then somebody coming in with 0.25%, 7-day cooling off, the valuation doesn't come, not because the property is not necessarily at the right price point, but you and I know, Martin, that the valuer also looks at the borrowing capacity of the purchaser, which is totally different, but yet that's all of a sudden that's what they do in order to say yay or nay on what they feel the value is. So all these things come into play. So look, it is what it is. They're signs of the times, Martin, signs of the times. And let's see how many predictions come to pass this year and how quickly they unfold.
Edwin, thank you very much. Great conversation this evening. Slightly wobbly line, but good, and very important points there at the end. So thank you very much, and we'll do it all again next week.
Definitely.